Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So today's video, we are talking about wedding venues. This is kind of a spin on a video that I did a long time ago. I wanted to redo it, not only because I felt like I needed some updated information, but also that it was just a very, very old video. So we're going to do a refreshing video on there are questions that you should ask your potential wedding venue before signing any contracts. So maybe these are questions that you are asking venues and trying to compare a top 2 or 3 and you're trying to decide which venue to go with. Perhaps asking these questions and getting the answers will help make that decision easier for you, or maybe these are just questions to make sure that you are on the right page when it comes to the wedding venue that you are hoping to select, and whether this is you have narrowed it down to just one. Just making sure that you are going through these topics before signing any contracts so that you know what is going to be required of you and what you can expect from your wedding venue so there are no surprises. So number 1, this should be the first thing you ask when looking for wedding venues, so hopefully you've already asked this, but the guest capacity is something that you definitely want to be asking in the very beginning stages of venue hunting. So knowing how many guests, what you can absolutely cap out at a wedding venue. And sometimes venues will give you a capacity based on like standing versus sitting. So if you're planning to have an indoor sit-down meal with all of your guests, you need to know what the capacity is for that, for how many tables and chairs and guests you can have seated in an indoor space, as well as what the venue can physically hold as far as like for a dance floor or something that is standing room. So understanding what your guest capacity is going to be crucial before signing any contracts with your potential wedding venue. Number 2, asking what is included as far as tables and chairs and physical items like that in the venue. So a more all-inclusive wedding venue is something that will have tables and chairs that are provided to you when you book the wedding venue. So there's usually about 3 levels that you can have here when it comes to your wedding venue and what is provided. So more all-inclusive, tables and chairs are already included when you sign your contract, and when you're paying for your venue, you automatically get those tables and chairs that are on site. The middle level is they have tables and chairs that are available, but maybe you have to rent them and pay that extra rental cost through the venue, in addition to what you're paying to actually reserve the venue and use the venue as a space itself. And then the lowest level would be you're paying for the venue and the space, but then you have to bring in tables and chairs from a rental company or from an outside location and bring them into your venue. So understanding what is included when it comes to that is going to be really important in the kind of vetting stage of venue hunting, as well as before signing your contract, so that you are fully aware of what is included and what is going to be necessary for you to provide before you get too deep into the planning process. Number 3, this is kind of a 2-parter, but first part, are there multiple locations to have a ceremony? So is there just one spot that you are given the option to have your wedding ceremony and that's the only place you have to choose from, or are there multiple locations that you can choose based on what you want your backdrop or your setting to be? This also goes hand in hand with, is there a backup option? Is there a plan B? So asking the venue what they do in the event of a storm or excessive heat or something that they need some kind of backup plan from the typical wedding ceremony site, what they do in the event of a rain plan or plan B, what that typically entails, and if there is a space for that. Number 4, are there any catering and or alcohol restrictions? So alcohol is the one that you definitely want to make sure that you're asking about, because this is the one that probably has the most laws and restrictions that can go around it and be so vastly different from venue to venue. So most importantly, understanding what their policies allow and what their permits are. So liquor licenses, do they allow you to bring in your own alcohol and be able to self-serve, or have just hired bartenders? Or maybe their liquor licenses requires you to have a fully catered alcohol bartending service, bring the alcohol and be serving it. So this can vary depending on the venue, and you want to make sure that you're absolutely sure and aware of what their laws and policies are regarding alcohol, because this can be very important when it comes to choosing how to bring alcohol into your wedding and the processes that you're going to go for providing and or selling it to your guests. Catering can also have some restrictions depending on the venue. So some venues will provide catering through the venue itself, and then you have to use their catering services. So understanding that before you sign any contracts is key, so that if there is a caterer that you want to use or a type of food that you really want to have, understanding that if you are locked into this venue, you are not able to bring in any outside catering to the venue, and you will be required to use whatever they provide. So know what your kind of desires and expectations are for catering when it comes to booking your wedding venue as well. Number 5, understanding the time constraints or the timing that is given to you when it comes to booking your venue. So are you booking the venue for just the day? Do you have access to it over the entire weekend? Is there an option to book it for the full weekend? What all is included timing wise? So you want to make sure that you know what time you are allowed to arrive to the venue, so what time you are able to start setting up, or maybe this is the time that you are going to arrive and have hair and makeup team meet you on site as well. What is the earliest you have access for that, as well as what time you have to be fully out of the venue. So there's a couple of follow-up questions to go with this as well, and understanding in more depth of what the end of the night will entail, which that will be the next point. So I'll just briefly touch on this part. Understanding what time, if there's a separate time for what time the music has to be off, and what time you have to physically have everybody and everything out of the venue. So those are the 2 end times that you need to make sure that you are aware of before signing your contract. So this kind of goes into number 6 as well, and that is the overall tear down expectations and requirements. So if you have a certain time that you have to have the music off and the actual reception ending, so for example 11 p.m. is when you have to have music off, reception ending, shuttles arriving, but you have until midnight to actually have everything out of the venue and all of the people off site. That's fairly standard, and so then you have that time to get all of your personal items out, any rentals packed off and outside of the venue during that time as well. Or do you just have to have all of the bodies and your personal items out at a certain time, but you have the following day to be able to take physical items off the site. So if you have a rental company that's going to come pick up things the following day, making sure that that is allowed with your venue. They don't have a hard stop of everything has to be out of venue by midnight the night of your wedding, including any rentals that are going to be picked up, because that will need to be very clearly stated with your rental companies so that you are not going to be charged any extra fines, or that your rental company will not be charging you any extra fines. You also want to be clear on what the cleanup duties are going to be required of you. So when it says clean up, is that just to get all of the items out, or are you required to actually physically clean? Do you need to sweep the floors? Do you need to empty all the garbages? All that kind of stuff. So understanding what the full scope of that tear down and cleanup is going to look like and what's going to be required of you is really important before you're signing any contracts, to make sure that you are planning on delivering on that and have the plan in place to be able to fulfill their expectation of cleanup. 7, are there any noise ordinances? So this might be a deciding factor depending on how late you want to go, or kind of how you envision your wedding reception, kind of the party part going. Some venues, depending on where they're located, might have a noise ordinance that they have to abide by. So this would mean either a certain level that your music has to stay under, or maybe there is a certain time that music has to be either off or down to that certain level. So a couple of venues I've worked at have an indoor space that the reception's happening, but they have big barn doors that are open, and there's a certain time of night at 10 p.m. or 10:30 where the doors have to be closed. So you can keep music going, you can keep the party going, but the doors have to be closed at that point. Or there's another venue where people will have dancing and stuff outside under a tent, but at 11 o'clock they have to move inside and have the remaining party time and dancing time inside. So understanding what that is going to look like will also be very important before signing your contract. Number 8, event insurance. Does your venue require event insurance, and do they have a specific company or place that has to come from? So make sure that you are fully understanding what is expected of you in the way of event insurance and what is required of you. Number 9, the money side, deposit. What is expected from you when it comes to the financial side of booking your wedding venue? Seems like a pretty obvious question, but sometimes it is not. So understanding what is required of you for the wedding venue to officially book your venue. Do you need to pay in full? Do you pay just a deposit? Is your deposit refundable? Is it non-refundable if you have to change your date? And understanding what the expectations and the policies are surrounding payment and your deposit. Number 10, are you able to have your rehearsal physically at your venue? So regardless of if you have the venue for the full weekend and you're planning to have your rehearsal dinner there or not. If you just have your wedding venue booked for the day of your wedding and just that one day, a lot of times the venue will still allow you to come in at a time previously to do your rehearsal. And this is typically you're just booked like an hour time slot and you're able to go on site and have a physical rehearsal in the space that you are actually going to have your wedding ceremony. So this is ideal. So you want to make sure that you are asking this before signing your contract with your venue, in case that might be a deciding factor for you on that venue versus another one. Understanding if you're able to physically have your wedding rehearsal on site. Number 11, parking. What is the parking situation like? Is there enough parking for all of your guests? Will you need to require guests to carpool to park somewhere else and catch a shuttle? Will you have to only have shuttles, as this will be an extra cost if you are hiring a transportation company to transport every single guest at your wedding, understanding what that's going to look like before signing your contract as well. Garbage is another thing that I feel like couples always forget to ask about or understand kind of what is expected of the couple or what the venue provides, because you're not really thinking about trash at your wedding, right? So garbage, understanding, one, do they have garbage cans around? Is that something you have to rent and bring on site to make sure that you have garbages? And who is responsible for emptying the garbages, not only at the end of the night, but throughout the evening? So trash cans will fill up quickly when you have a large guest count, especially if you're having disposable items, if you're having disposable cups at the bar, or especially if you're having disposable items during dinner. Trash cans are going to fill up pretty quickly throughout the evening. So is that on you? Is that on the venue? Will they have somebody there on site that's taking care of garbage? Understanding what that is going to look like prior to signing your contract. Number 13, is there a getting ready place on site? So it is always easiest, if possible, to have hair and makeup done and be going through the getting ready process right on site. That way you can eliminate any traffic that might occur, car accidents that might hold you up, anything in the travel time if you are getting ready somewhere else and then traveling to your wedding venue. Just a lot of factors can come into play here and a lot of risky moments. So if you're able to just show up and be spending that entire time getting ready right on site and not have to account for any of that travel time, that is ideal. So understanding if that's going to be an option for you and if there is a location that you are able to hang out and get ready and have whatever individuals are going to be joining you for that as well. Number 14, are there flames allowed? Open flame. So this can be anything from a candle to sparklers, as like a sparkler exit is something that we have seen a lot over the years. Some venues have no problem with having candles on the table. Some say absolutely not. And some have just certain restrictions where if you are going to light a real candle and have it burning, to have some kind of casing, like a pillar candle, hurricane candle vase over the candle to kind of protect that flame. So understanding what is going to be allowed there, if you have a very specific idea in mind on wanting to have a bunch of candles for your reception decor, you want to make sure that you are asking this to know that what you're envisioning is actually going to be a possibility for you. And finally, will there be someone on site during the duration of your day to help with anything that will arise? So is there a venue coordinator or the owners of the venue? Will they be on site in case of emergency or in case you need assistance with something, if the power goes out or if restrooms aren't working or something like that that has to do with the venue itself? Will there be somebody on site to assist with these things, or how do you move forward if there is an issue with the venue itself? Your wedding venue is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle when it comes to planning your wedding, so you want to make sure that you are finding the one that is right for you, that is going to provide you with the wedding that you are envisioning and planning and going to go as smoothly as possible. So hopefully asking these questions before signing your contract will help set you up for success to achieve this. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.